right, so rapid fire mode today. We've got about 15, maybe 20 minutes to talk about a topic that I think people might click on. I don't think people click on stuff that'll teach them stuff. That's kind of the insurance industry as a whole. But I think this title might cause people to click on it today. Nick, we're talking about my freaking client disenrolled, canceled, switched plans, and I don't know what the heck to do next. How's that today's topic?
How dare they cancel their policy on you?
Unbelievable.
They should only be your client and nobody else should ever talk to them.
Not at all.
Yeah. They're jerks. You're better off without them, honestly. Just move on.
I did text you that this week. I said, I am so sick of dealing with Jane Doe that I blocked her. And Jane Doe let another agent into the home, and that agent still called me. Literally, Jane Doe will not go away.
Sometimes you can't get rid of them.
We sell her something, so she leaves me alone.
Yeah, sometimes you can't get rid of them. There's nothing you can do. They're yours forever.
For 23 cents a month in final expense.
So from a compliance perspective, you're not supposed to go and try and conserve business, right? Like the insurance companies with Medicare Advantage oftentimes don't even tell you that somebody is disenrolled. You have to sort of proactively check for stuff. And once they've disenrolled, you no longer have tacit permission to contact them. So there's a bunch of stuff that goes on there, right? Like there's, you got to reacquire permission to contact. You got to have reasons to talk to them. It does get legitimately tricky. That being said, it doesn't stop literally anybody. Literally anybody. None of this stuff stops anybody ever from trying to conserve business. Should it stop you from trying to conserve business? Well, if you're following the rules, yeah, it probably should. But that being said, it doesn't stop anybody. From a compliance perspective, one of the reasons why it's always good to have multiple policies in a house is then you still have an existing business relationship. Existing business relationships, by the way, end for 2 years from the last time that you've contacted them. So if you haven't contacted your client in at least 2 years, I mean, sort of shame on you, but if you haven't contacted them in at least 2 years, you no longer are presumed to have a tacit existing business relationship. And so you no longer have permission to contact based on your prior business relationship. So that's all just good stuff to just know. What you do with this information is entirely up to you. I'm not telling you what to do, but this is, from a compliance perspective, just sort of how it works. If you have existing business in the home, you have a prior business relationship, you are allowed to contact people about that business relationship. Where that conversation goes while you're contacting them about their business that you have with them is up to you. And that prior business relationship, which supersedes things like do not call lists, lasts for 2 years from the last time that you've had contact with your client. So I would say at the very least, make an effort to contact your clients once every 2 years. That shouldn't be hard.
No. I got a scenario to pose your way, and maybe we could figure out compliantly what to do in this scenario.
Sure.
So again, this is not the first person I was messing about. This is totally different actual scenario. You have multiple pieces of business in the home separate from the Medicare Advantage case. So you wander into this theoretical client's home, doing a service visit, a casual drop-in, needed to use the bathroom. I don't know why you're there, but you're there compliantly. And while you're there, you're being a thoroughly diligent agent, going through to make sure everything's up to date with what you have and what they have, and that you haven't missed anything since the last time you were there. And you find out while you were there, this client disenrolled from a quality plan that you had them in, and they're not in your plan anymore. And what do you do in that situation?
So I would start off by finding out why they disenrolled. Did they know they disenrolled? They don't always know that they disenrolled, right? They don't always know that you're not their agent anymore if they disenrolled. People do get told, hey, yeah, switch plans. They'll still be your agent. They can help you out. They'll still do all the service work for you. And they don't realize that you're not their agent anymore. So there's nothing wrong with talking to people, right? Where people get themselves in trouble is when they start. So let me start over. Back when the internet was young, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, not even all that young, back when the internet was like a teenager, there were things called bulletin boards. People would kind of discuss in asynchronous, non-real time. They'd post something and then somebody else would post back. It was kind of sort of like Facebook or Reddit, but kind of not. And these communities typically would have rules. And the number one rule of almost every single one of these communities was don't be a jerk, right? Number one rule, almost all of these communities, don't be a jerk. If you're a jerk, we're going to kick you out. When you are in sales, number one rule is don't be a jerk. Don't get yourself in trouble. Don't be a jerk. If you are stopping by and seeing your client, who is your client, and you're just having a friendly conversation about what's going on with them, and part of what comes up in that conversation is like, hey, yeah, I actually did change my plan. Here's why I changed it. Here's what I think about it. No, I don't really like it. No, I didn't really know what happened. Yes, I would like you to be my agent. They're fine things to have conversations about. Conversation happens kind of like that. Aces. If, on the other hand, hey, Mary, what the heck? You changed your plan? Makes my dogs bark. Makes their dogs bark. Makes everybody's dogs bark. Hey, Mary, you changed your plan? Why are you doing this?
I think the tough part with that is there's so many compliant ways to get into the home. And the problem I encountered this week in this theoretical scenario is they were in like a solid dual plan, like locally, it's all different across the country, like a Humana, UHC type scenario. And then somebody rolled them into an Aetna plan. And I'm like, well, that one was good. And that one's like, what do you do in that scenario? Because like to put them in something else, really, it just gets frustrating because now they're in such a really good plan. Ethically, you'd be rolling them into something that isn't as good just to get them back as a client.
I mean, if they're in the best plan, they're in the best plan. And that sort of sucks. And there's not always a lot that you can do about that. Somebody else did a better job than you, and that does sort of suck. Now, some companies will allow for agent of record changes. Not every company does. WellCare does, Cigna does, Devoted does, Aetna does. Some companies don't. So if they want you to be their agent, but they like the plan that they have, they can switch, but not every company lets that happen. Some companies will let that happen, but only if their existing agent no longer exists. Like if they didn't recertify or they retired or whatever. Humana, for example, if you go chasing Humana AORs, you'll spin your wheels and waste a lot of time. But Humana, if their agent of record is no longer ready to sell and appointed with Humana, they'll let you do an agent of record change. They'll let the client do the agent of record change. Humana will not talk to you to do that at all. But if the client calls in and says, hey, Chris is my agent, can you please make sure he gets credit for being my agent and access to my files? And there isn't an agent and they are genuinely an orphan, yeah, then you get paid and get access to her for client files and stuff. So that's cool. But the attitude that you should be taking when you are meeting with a Medicare client is always first, do no harm. Don't put them in a worse situation than the one that they're in. But stay in contact. Plans change every single year. When those plan changes happen, when a new plan comes on the market that's better, when networks change, when a hospital stops accepting that plan, if you're the person that they've been talking to, well, then you're the person that they're going to call. I will give you an example. I have a client who is now actually my client, but was not my client for like 2 years. It was a referral from a good friend of mine. She lives in Kentucky. She doesn't even live in Pennsylvania, but she was referred to me because her agent was completely AWOL. And she was in Kentucky. Anthem is a very strong plan. She was on an Anthem plan in Kentucky. And she really, really liked the plan, but she was having some basic issues. She had gotten denied for a claim. She needed to file like a dispute and kind of work through it. And she could not find her agent. And so I helped her out with this stuff. Anthem did not allow AOR changes any longer. But they did once upon a time, but they didn't by the time she had contacted me. So she couldn't become my client, but she was referred to me by a very good friend of mine. And so I wasn't going to not help her. And over the years, about 2 years now, she has needed a couple of little things here and there, not serious, heavy things, but like she had difficulty finding a new doctor. And so I helped her find a new doctor, and she lost her cards. And so I helped her get new insurance cards. Easy stuff, little things. Last AEP, some of the offerings that were around changed, and Anthem was no longer the best plan for her in her area. And she wanted to go with me. And so I moved her plan. And so now she is actually my client, and I actually get paid on that.
How do you like make a note somewhere in the ethos of your life to make sure that she's not my client, but I like those type of people so that you know to go back and visit with them at some point in the future?
So I use a very complicated setup that I would not necessarily recommend for everybody, which involves a CRM, a task manager, and my calendar, and my digital calendar. If you are a fully pen and paper person, I don't know how you do that. I have all sorts of alarms and reminders to remind me to do everything, and nothing gets done in my life if I don't have these things. But but so basically, I have a CRM, and anytime I talk to anybody, I make notes about it in my CRM. And I just notate what we discussed so I can revert back to it the next time that they call. People have Notability. I think you're a big Notability user. You can do the exact same thing in Notability. You just create a little notebook for each of your client, or however, OneNote. You don't have to have a CRM to do this stuff, but whatever. Track your conversations. The CRM also tracks who is actually on my book of business and who's not on my book of business for me. So I have like statuses for them to say if they're a client or not. And then I have a task manager that reminds me periodically to check in with people on why I'm checking in with people. And then on my calendar every year, people who I want to try to reach out to see if they want to do a review and become my client like properly. I have like scheduled dated reminders on my calendar to kind of go hit those people up. And then sometimes they just call. Like, I mean, if you're doing good work, like
People call you.
People are going to call you.
Yeah. I have this very basic attempt right now to track people that I can't do anything with right now ethically.
Mhm.
And maybe one day I'll be able to do something with. And in my Google sheet, it says future Medicare opportunities. And I'm just writing down their basic demographic information, their MBI. I don't know if that's compliant, whatever, what they currently have, maybe their doctor, like the best I can come up with in the heat of battle. So that one day I'll go back and visit with Wanda Brown.
Mhm.
Maybe Wanda doesn't like Aetna anymore. Wanda's a real person. That was the wrong thing to say. You get the point. Like, this is what I'm trying to do, but I think doing something is better than nothing, right?
Nobody would have known. Wanda Brown is such a generic name. You could have just kept on going.
Aaron, cut that part out. Bleep it out. That person doesn't actually exist. I didn't say that on recording. We only have a limited time today, and even though we're talking about disenrollments and what to do and how to find out and compliantly conserve it, and we could probably unpack that over a whole hour, we only have about 15 minutes today. So, Nick, I've got a mini hot take that I think those that are watching to the end of the video would benefit from hearing your take on. You ready for it?
Let's do it.
So, what is the most exciting thing you're looking forward to in this year's AEP?
Ooh, that is interesting. Thing that I'm actually looking forward to most for 2024 is not a thing that's going to really matter as much for AEP for me. I mean, it's kind of cool. It'll matter for a lot of people. But the thing that I think is actually sort of coolest is the change to the extra help rules, so that extra help is now figured on 150% of the federal poverty line, as opposed to 135% of the federal poverty line. Which, when you put it that way, sounds very nerdy and not actually all that exciting. But what effectively means is that a whole bunch of people are going to get access to the federal extra help program that made just a little bit too much money. It's going to effectively raise the extra help qualification level by about $200 a month, which means that there's just a ton of people. If you are living on Social Security and nothing else, pretty much everybody that's in that situation should qualify for extra help. The way the rules are rewritten. Some people won't, but pretty much everybody that only has Social Security is going to qualify for extra help, which is fairly exciting, actually. It offers a lot of very real help to a lot of people. The other thing that's kind of cool is the way that insulin rules are being changed, which is kind of neat. From an opportunity perspective, this is terrible for consumers, but prescription drug plans are getting crazy expensive and are covering almost nothing. For somebody who sells a lot of Medicare Advantage plans, that is actually probably a fairly large opportunity. Not so great for consumers, but you with the reality that exists. Help people as you can.
Quick follow-up to that one. For agents that are watching this, that are maybe venturing into their first legitimate AEP, like they've kind of gotten ramped up over the course of this year, or maybe they're just getting ramped up right now and they're going to be on time by the time it starts, what would be an achievable goal for a full-time field or phone agent with a solid leads program, not some grassroots garbage. A realistic AEP goal for an agent new to AEP.
Oh, God. Brand new, never written anything prior to October 1st.
Not new to the insurance industry, but
new to Medicare.
New to Medicare.
Okay.
People know who they are.
Right. If you are not new to sales and insurance, but you've never written Medicare prior to October 1st, I would even encourage you to just not think about the fact that it's AEP. Really, really. Like, I'd say go out, run your life the way that you would run it. Run leads, go sit with as many people as you can, whatever kind of leads you're running. If you're running Medicare leads, if you're running whatever leads, go talk to whoever you can. But just acclimate yourself to what that conversation about Medicare feels like, because it's going to feel a little bit different in a couple of ways. It's going to be a little bit there. People are going to be a little bit more interested in talking to you, and also a little bit more like checking you out and making sure how much you're actually real and how much you're kind of just full of crap.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you get used to having that conversation, the easier it is to have that conversation. And you should, I mean, if you're running leads and you're working full time, you should like trip over 25 or 30 apps. Like, okay. I mean, like really, it's 8 weeks now, like 4 a week. Like, you should like trip over that if you're running leads during AEP. I would set your goals based on the number of people you have that Medicare conversation with, like not even thinking about how much you're writing, like how many reps can you get in if you've never done this before? How many reviews can you give? How many people can you explain benefits to? And like I would like 5 a day for every day that you're in the field is probably pretty good. Like, try and give 5 Medicare presentations a day throughout the entirety of AEP, because it's never going to be easier to do that than it is during AEP. The best thing for a new agent about AEP is just how easy it is to have that conversation. And so it really gives you an opportunity to practice and get your reps in and get comfort tools and software and tracking and whatever you're using. Like getting all that going and getting very familiar with it. And then I would probably say for OEP is when you should maybe start putting together some action goals, with the idea that like your entire first year is just a practice year to build, you know, with a goal of trying to by October 1st of 2024, like 100 people on your book of business. I think that's a really good first year goal for most agents.
I like the fact that you said that they can trip over 30 if they're simply out there having a conversation in the senior market anyway. Yeah. The fact that you're not restricted by any SCP knowledge is just literally the AEP button, that you're already there. And it's just, I agree. I've really honed in on that this week, that the fact that the conversation is different. It's really not a sales presentation, because they don't want to be sold on the difference between this OTC and that OTC. They want a consultative conversation where you're listening to what they like, what they dislike, what they need, what they want, and then putting them in the best situation you can encounter at that point. But in the end, learning by doing is the best way to learn anything. I'm sure you'd agree.
Absolutely. Yeah, without question. In fact, there's so much you cannot possibly learn in this business unless you go out and actively try. If you're not out there actively trying to talk to people, there's just stuff that you'll never know, that you won't really ever understand. And like you were saying, more than anything, like when you're having a care conversation, they are checking out whether you actually understand what you're talking about enough to give them advice that they feel comfortable accepting, right? Which means you have to be listening to them so that you're giving them advice that matters and is relevant to them, but also that you have to kind of give off an air of, hey, I know what I'm doing, so that when you then tell them what the thing to do based on what they want, what the right thing to do is, that they then go, okay, I trust this guy or gal or person, non-binary.
Well said.
So
on that note, I think it's important to remember to learn by doing. Like, I don't care if you've done all the prep, otherwise you can't sell anything, but eventually you need to close the book, get into the field, and figure it out. You're not going to hurt people if you're looking to do an ethical business. You're not going to kill people. You're not going to die by doing, like, just do the best you can with the people that you see, and you'll get better and better. You'll get better every single day. You won't be the same person you were yesterday, but you won't be anybody if you just don't go out there and try to see the people. And if you're with an organization that isn't offering any support and you have to watch our videos to learn what you need to do, maybe you need to contact one of us. Like, realistically, if your advice and your training and your experience is these videos, that's why we do them. But let us know so we can help you take things to the next level. Because I learned something by interviewing Nick every week, but you can learn a whole lot more from him on a regular basis. Appreciate you taking the time, Nick, on a busy Friday to spend it with me. Aaron, appreciate you editing the video. And crowd, appreciate you for watching, liking, subscribing, sharing. Even if it's a short, hitting that little thumb button that shows it to more people that don't even know that we're out there. Appreciate you being here today, Nick, and I'll see you next week.
See ya.